Okay, how you doing, Alex?
Very well, very well. Thank you so much for breakfast this morning and a chance to record some of the things about the Mystical City.
Good. Yeah, you were able to do a nice morning session with the Mystical City of God and your books and things like that. We'll put that together. I think that's going to have to be just one long teaching session for the viewers to go through. We just ran through some of it upstairs to review it, and I think it's going to come out really good. It's going to be a great introduction. I think a great overlay for people to get into a good study and prayer life with the books as we talk about. So I think it's a great way to get people to think about this series of books here, The Mystical City of God, as not so much as something to read, but something to have as far as your prayer life. You know, to pray it, don't read it. And it's a great way to look at that. So,
yeah, another thing that you had mentioned upstairs I thought that was very good. We talked about Mr. Carrico, I think, for the first time that he saw a golden triangle over our Blessed Mother, and you had some insights into that, about that golden triangle that he saw.
The golden triangle is significant of the Holy Trinity, and that's what's on the back of the medallion of Our Lady of America that I was pointing out to you, that is actually the Holy Family's coat of arms that's on the back of that medallion. And a lot of people want to say, well, that's a Masonic symbol. I said, well, no, the Masons stole it from the Catholics. And so on the back of the Our Lady of America medallion, it's not going to be able to be seen. I'll try to put it up there. But on the inside of the shield, it has that triangle that you speak of, and a lot of people think is the Masonic symbol with the triangle with the eye in it. But that's actually a Catholic symbol to signify the divine indwelling of the Holy Trinity.
It's beautiful. You were telling me even today you're still confronted with this.
Oh, I have my intelligent cousins and other people who always want to sit there and say that I'm an idiot because it's a Mason symbol. I said, yeah. No, I said the Masons corrupted it, and you just aren't aware of that, and because you stopped in your thinking, in your development as a good Catholic person, you got through 8th grade or whatever it is was the end of your CCD classes, and you stopped.
Well, today we're going to talk about courage versus weakness and some of the things associated with that. I know that you've been thinking about some of the ramifications, what's going on in the world today, vice versus virtue, inversions, things that are upside down.
Right, strength versus weakness, and what has manifest itself, and where we're seeing in everything around us right now.
So what are you seeing, Larry? I mean, you talked to me a couple of things upstairs that
I'm seeing a general weakening and malaise happening in basically all facets of our lives, especially against males. And I feel it very personally that way because that's how I identify.
Okay.
And so from my vantage point, in my life, I grew up during the women's movement, and I've, learned from the mistakes that men have made before my generation, and in my generation, and what I've done that women may have found offensive. But I think they also have to understand of a few of the things that women have done that men find offensive.
Okay, that sounds fair enough.
I mean, there's the brick lays both ways, as they say.
Sure.
So what we have to do is we have to be mindful of these things, that in the destruction of one part of your foundation, you're going to have potential for damage over on the opposite side of the structure.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it goes without saying. And I think we've paid the price on this as a society all of my life. And I don't know if the damage is over, if it's just continuing, if it's just taking a different form.
What kind of practical things are you seeing that are deteriorating the sanctity of the maleness?
Well, you're saying confusion in identities. I kind of started off, kind of kidding that I identify as a male, but in this day and age, that's a question that people want to ask of you.
Well, in which way is that a question?
Well, people say, how do you identify? What are your pronouns?
So the language is being...
Well, it's being corrupted. They want to change the actual meanings and definitions of words. Let's try one. Define for me the word woman.
Well, to me, I can tell you.
Please, because we have a Supreme Court justice who cannot.
I didn't realize that, but I would say a woman. I identify as my wife, mother of my children, grandmother of my grandchildren. A woman is able to get pregnant and birth a child, feed a child, nourishment from her own breast. Does that cover it? I mean, women are the one. If I see a woman, beautiful. I think, oh, what a beautiful creation God had for.
You know, they're far more than just, you know, people with the ability to have a baby,
Sure.
you know, naturally. But that is a defining element of sex and gender. But that's all being twisted right now, and that because the questions even out there suggests that there's been a weakness in our society and our community as a group to sit there and question idiocy when it's happening.
Why are we entertaining what would, being in the psychiatric field, that would be considered almost a psychiatric issue if you can't identify a woman from a man.
Thank you.
I mean,
It is a psychiatric issue.
That would be a mental
Right.
health issue.
Yes,
okay?
it is.
But you're saying that this is put on the board as something that can be
Well,
accepted.
this whole cancel culture, you know, whatever it is you want to call it out here, but cancel culture has been going on a long time before, like 2020 or whatever year you want to suggest.
Give us some
I was canceled back in 2008.
And what were those subtleties that you picked up on that they were canceling you out?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I got death threats for one.
Oh, over.
Over everything to do with Rome City. I mean, when
Who would possibly want to be offended by?
well, I was threatened by all sorts of people, but primarily Catholics. At that time, were threatening that I should be dead, and I should be excommunicated, and I should be run out of town.
Dear Lord, it's amazing.
Yeah, that all started in 2008.
So what insanity possesses people to be? First of all, within our teachings, that's not at all what we're supposed to do as Christians.
No, but if you're led down that path, and one of your leaders or whatever gives you bad information, and you end up acting on that in good faith, you act in good faith on their bad information and intentional disinformation. Yeah, it can have consequences.
Yeah, well, death threats are certainly something nobody wants in their life, especially you're being called to present some very important issues of redemption in society, particularly today. Tell me about the male weakness. What is happening in terms of how are young people looking at themselves as husbands and fathers?
Well, one of the things with male weakness right now, they want to attack people for what they want to call toxic masculinity.
And what is that?
Well, it depends on what they want to call it. You know, it's up for them to determine that was toxic, and, you know, it's up to them to decide if you're, doing something that they don't like and they want to put a label on it. You know, just because no one has the rights to not have their feelings hurt. You know, but right now everyone's trying to say that their feelings were hurt and so they were offended, and you need to stop your behavior because you hurt my feelings.
I remember my father.
Depends what those feelings are and what's actually going on. I'm not saying that all behavior is dismissive.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the certain things that are being called out is just ridiculous, and we all, you know, it's like what the one judge says. Well, I'll know what lewdity is when I see it. What's lewd when I see it, as far as public decorum and what the public decency laws.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the judge says, well, I'll know if it's lewd when I see it, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because they wanted him to define it. And he says, I'll know it when I see it.
Well,
but this was clear back in the 30s, 40s, whatever, when people still had a head on their shoulders.
Okay.
And now you have to carry like 6 collective voices inside your own head. Otherwise, you're afraid of somebody canceling you out. And all of a sudden, you start losing your prestige or power, if you will.
You fail to be human then, because
Well, that's the first thing they want to do if they want to cast you out, is they want to dehumanize you. Because that's what the first thing you do. That's why, they want to call, the one side wants to call them MAGA extremists, which I still don't know what a MAGA extremist is. I don't know what's so wrong about wanting to make your country great again. The converse of that will say, liberal extremists, people who want to take over, cities, towns, or whatever, whole or in part, and then let craziness go on and say, this is their right.
It's insane.
No, it's not their right. It's your endorsement of a crazy notion.
So you had mentioned, you asked, well, what is the definition of a woman? Of course, I talked about some of the basic constructs.
We all know what a woman is.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
it's just a ridiculous question on the face of it.
And so you're telling me there's a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that was asked that question? And
In her review, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she said she wasn't able to define because she's not an expert. She's not a biologist. So, but one thing she did do is in her answer, she stated that it is a question of biology because she couldn't answer it. And so, but because all the other woke folks want to go out there, they want to say that you or I could identify as a woman, and then we should have all the rights and privileges of a woman that go with that designation. Look at the athletes. I mean, stealing women's virtue by way of their identity. Why women across America are not having a sit-down strike right now, I don't know why.
That is
why aren't you standing up for yourself and saying no?
Yeah, why aren't they, Larry?
I think they're afraid to be shut out and be ostracized. I mean, it's gone that far into the psyche that they're so afraid to stand up for themselves because what's it really hurting? But it's hurting you. They just don't see it.
And they still won't stand up.
They're not confident enough. They're weak. Because they've been patterned this way. It's not that they're intentionally being weak. They're afraid to move forward on it because they've seen what happens when you step out.
Okay.
They will pounce on you like piranha and chew you up.
Yep.
I've seen what had happened to me here, and what they did. They didn't stop with me. They went after my family. And that was really the last straw. So you don't go after my mom and dad.
Yeah. There were studies in social psychology about conformity. And people will conform also about authoritarian. And, of course, many of you know these studies where people would be dressed up in outfit suits, white coats, and that the person was to flick a switch with somebody in the other room, and they would shock them. And they would see how far would that person go to shock the person in the other room because of the authoritarian.
Just the presence of a clipboard.
Just the presence of a clipboard. You yielded to that. Yeah.
Exactly. People yield to the presence of the clipboard that this person's carrying authority. It's just a 98-cent clipboard.
And they're thinking that I got to comply.
Of course.
And now they're complying to inversion. Inversion means black is white and white is black. 1 and 1 equals 4.
Or whatever you want it to be.
Whatever you want it to be.
Right.
So this relative...
Good is bad, bad is good. And it's reveled in that way, and it's held in regard by other people. There's that word again, regard. It's held in high esteem, and people give regard to things that they know on the outset are probably bad, but in this instance, it's good. Because they said it so.
So there's power to their definition, even though it's crazy.
It's the only thing that allows them to stare their lie in the face. Is say, well, that's not what that word means anymore. We changed it when you went to go get a sandwich. We decided, well, you were gone.
So
we moved the goalposts again.
We used to work with, there were areas in mental health. There was a mentally retarded. Well, we don't call them mentally retarded anymore. So what do we call them? So we call them mentally challenged. I don't know, mentally challenged. I mean, retarded only means that there's an IQ set. I mean, you go back, some of them were profoundly retarded where they were literally born where, like, they stayed infant for their whole lives. Genetically, they were missing things. So, this is nonsense. I mean, next thing you knew, all of these institutions were empty. And so where did these kids that were to be born that had these, is it euthanasia? I mean, what are they doing? How are we now?
I don't think they note that on the file when they do one of these procedures, as they like to call it, these medical procedures.
Yeah. It's a human being, folks. And years ago, Fort Wayne used to have it's where is it on Well Street? They used to have a
Oh, the St. Vincent's Villa was the orphanage?
orphanage.
Yeah.
See, years ago, when they had nothing, they built orphanages, and they cared for the kids. That's what they did years ago,
The church did.
right?
Yeah, it was St. Vincent's Villa in Fort Wayne. I remember I had an aunt who was very involved with that, and she was always at holiday time was always bringing home one of the kids just so they could have a regular
Family,
home.
yeah,
they
sure,
they
yeah.
weren't going to be their family, but at least it was a day
Right.
of normalcy,
Right.
and all the kids got hosted by somebody.
And they got a present. or
Well,
something. Yeah.
they got a place, and then sometimes an adoption came out of it.
Right.
Well, why are we doing that?
Well, I think it comes back to what you're talking about.
I mean, why did it stop?
Weakness. Why are we so weak now in the midst of so plenty that we have?
Maybe somebody thought it was doing the kids harm in the long run, and they thought in their great esteem, oh, you can't just give them hope and then take it away. Well, you can give them a day away that's a relief from their normal pattern, and then maybe they're relieved if they see life in a normal home. Boy, I'd really rather back at St. Vincent's, with the other kids, because after a while you learn and you really aren't up for changes,
Right.
especially the older they get.
Right.
But you never know when somebody gets through to something like that and a connection's made. But I remember back in the day, I mean, the orphanages would be emptied out over the holidays. I don't even know if we really have orphanages anymore.
I don't think so.
I can't tell you if there's one around.
No,
I think they just put them into homes. They shuffle them off into somebody's home
Like
immediately.
foster homes, yeah.
Whether it's a good fit or it's a fit, it's a bed.
Or it's a bad fit. Right?
Yeah,
Who
hot in a
knows?
cot, so to speak. And sometimes there's good, nurturing, and I think anyone to be a foster parent has got to be awesome, on the outset. So, because to sit there and make room in your home for another person, that's not of your family, but that's an open heart. That's a great way to go.
My daughter and my son-in-law were foster parents down in New Orleans, and they ended up adopting three foster kids. And one of the kids kind of rebelled. And
So
went
you
away.
see, it works.
Oh,
And
I'll
I
tell
didn't
you.
know anything about that.
It's a miracle, I tell you.
No, but I think it
Yeah, it does
works,
work. Yeah,
.
especially in the context of Elizabeth and Brian they're faithful. They're good hearts, and they pray and the sacraments and so on. But the first one was she was like maybe 14, and and she did what 14-year-olds do, and then she finally went out the window and she did this. Don't you want to be adopted? I don't want to be adopted. Well, then they had another 2-year-old where the parents were, the father was a drug pusher and the mother was a drug addict, so there's not much there, but the kid was deprived. And my daughter and son-in-law were foster parents, adopted the little boy when he was 2 years old. And then little Peanut, her mother was, God rest her soul, was a drug addict, and the father, same thing, drug pusher. And they adopted her. And so when we're going to go down the
So 3 separate. It wasn't
3 separate.
Okay, well,
And so we went down for, we called her Peanut. Her name is Rosie, but she's like a little peanut, so we call her just like your brother. And we went down, and all of a sudden, our Brianna decides, she says, the social worker calls, you can still be adopted if you want to ask, your foster parents. So she calls up my wife, or I'm sorry, she calls up my daughter, her foster mother, and said, "Can I be adopted along with Peanut?" So we're thinking, what's this all about, right? And so, yeah, sure, yeah, you can be adopted. So we adopted. At that time, she was like 19 or 20. She wanted to be adopted, and
she wanted a place.
well, here's the thing. I asked her because what's this about? Well, she went back and started being with her family of origin, and drugs. They dumped the kids off on her. And Brianna was a good heart. She would do all that, try to keep the family balanced. Finally, it was like, this thing is going to destroy me because
You were breaking her. Yeah, she wasn't ready for it, and she finally came to the point. She says, "I need help."
So I said, Brianna, why at this time did you want to be adopted? You know what she told me? I knew what love was.
You see?
Are you? There's the miracle because I've been in the social work business. You don't normally see that unless you have that core, that burning, what
So
you call
you-
divine indwelling.
Well,
I mean,
well, my progression of how do you get to joy? You have to suffer,
and there it is.
and then you find appreciation.
You're right, and that's what she
And
wants.
that's what she did. And then she found joy in realizing
Right.
she made a decision. She knew what love was.
Yeah. So they're my.
I mean, so she went from suffering to appreciation to joy.
in
That's
fact,
that's the path.
absolutely. And my son-in-law was a real man, long in adoption, and my daughter is a real woman. Out of the love and that's what it's about. And I look at the he knows it's like I get done here, I go grandkids. I got the little thing. I bought the doctor's kit. I got the eyes thing and the stethoscope, and I pull out the thing. And it actually goes boom, 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 boom. I'm like, it's. I swear to God, but it's all love. It's
And the kids get to play with it too sometimes.
Well, it's just a weakness. We shouldn't be weak. We should be strong.
Exactly. You need to understand who you are,
Yeah.
where you're at, and who are your people around you. Who do you all hold in esteem? And then once you realize that, then you realize that the rest of the stuff around is just insanity, and it needs to be squelched. But sometimes it's not going to be with hammer blows. You're going to have to win this over with kindness and the feather strokes.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
You're going to have to just basically
Sure, because
let them get through their problems with their
teenage problems or whatever else.
yeah, they're having their tantrums,
Right.
whatever it is that they're going through. Just like society, I say right now we're going through like a 3-year-old temper tantrum.
Yeah, you were saying that.
in the
Yeah,
community.
sure.
I mean but it's starting to die out, and even the ones the crazies who were saying all this stuff a few years ago are realizing, I really didn't know what I was talking about.
So they're coming around.
Well, they're realizing that a lot of the stuff that they were told to act about was all false.
Wow.
I mean, you had people out there complaining about, and still complaining about the Gaza Strip and stuff like that in the news. They're protesting. They're coming 800 miles to protest all day and complain about Gaza Strip, and they don't even know where it is.
Right.
Right. I mean, they have no idea where the Gaza Strip is or the West Bank. They have no idea
Right.
where these
Should at least
where these
know where
places
you're
are.
looking at before you
Right.
protest for it.
And I say, well, point to where Palestine is. Where was Palestine in 1920? Show me on the map. It was right over there by. Well, this map's wrong. Is
Yeah.
it? No, the map was right.
It's right next to Ohio, if you don't know.
Well, it's in Ohio, but no, it's East Palestine. But no, there never was a Palestine. Palestinians were just considered Jews.
Sure.
I mean, a Jew was a Palestinian.
We all live together, right.
in the biblical name, but
Okay.
there never was a country of Palestine in that regard. I mean, there were people that were probably talking about Palestine.
So,
but it
so
wasn't
really, they should be living together, is what you're saying.
well, they kind of are, but they're living against each other, just like you're doing here in this country too. We're living against ideology next door,
Even worse,
many
yeah.
times.
Yeah,
And
even worse, right. It's-
And neighbors are despising each other.
Yes.
For the way that they vote their money or their policy and stuff like that in their own families. I've had people in restaurants sit there and want to try to mock me for even praying before a meal.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. They say, "Oh, yeah, so you think that's going to make the food taste any better?" I said, "Actually, it does."
Who would?
Just idiots that just want to blast you for something. And I've had a little bit of a notice put my way in this town and stuff like that. For some people want to call me that a-hole, the Catholic up there, and it's like I've never gone after anyone about their politics. Well, I go after about their politics. I mean, I will. I mean, sometimes idiocy is idiocy.
It's amazing.
But and I really don't care as long as good gets done. And right now I'm seeing a lot of bad stuff happening. People are hungry. They're many times desperate for dollars, and I understand that. I mean, I really do, from their perspective, because it's quiet because they're shut down. And I used to be an auctioneer for all those years, and I worked for the federal court. I had to go out and be the repo man on these bankruptcies.
Is that right?
And I had to go out and try to take care of not only the creditors, but the individuals, too, to help them preserve their dignity
Oh my God.
as much as I could. And some of them didn't want dignity. They wanted to fight. When I got there, I said, look, sir, I said, I'm not here to fight. I said, these are the documents you signed. If you don't want to do this, I said, I can turn it all back in, and the court can
Do what they got to do.
You're right.
Yeah.
They can modify this. This is the power's in your hands. And I always tried to make sure they understood that.
Well, that's a tightrope. That's a fine
Well,
line.
yeah, because I didn't know if they're going to pull out a gun and shoot me too.
Sure, because they say you're taking what we have all of our lives.
Right,
and,
but these are all voluntary surrenders. There wasn't any forced
surrender.
pickups. Yeah,
Okay.
but many times we see the results of these weaknesses or these problems in these families that brought on by the dollars. And we had a policy with my guys picking things up. If a woman came to the door with a black eye or physical bruising,
Yeah.
It was an abandoned pickup job, and it was like, ma'am, are you okay? Do you need a ride someplace?
Oh, my
I'm here. I
goodness.
can give you a ride.
Wow.
Or are there kids involved? You
Jeez.
offer them a ride to a safe place, and that was usually to the local fire station.
My God.
And on every one of our pickups, I always marked where the nearest fire station was with a safety center for these people in the community. And so my guys were, their first directive was to make sure that everyone was safe in the home.
Tell
And
me,
we saw so much beating, it was terrible.
tell me about one in particular that you remember.
Oh,
that might
well-
touch the hearts of.
We came in, knocked on the door. The guy was in the process of beating her.
Oh.
We could hear it. He goes to the back room. We see her, and she's coming to the door. No, everything's fine. Everything's fine. No, you didn't see nothing. You didn't see nothing. I said, ma'am, I said, that's not true. And I said, but we're here to help you. We're not here to hurt. And, he stayed back there, would not come out, and MF'd us and stuff like this.
Sure.
And I finally just said, ma'am, I said, you either come with me or the police are going to be here in a matter of minutes. I said, I'm just doing my job.
Wow.
She came with us.
Thank God.
Mhm.
And so, why are they willing to be beaten? Because there's nowhere else for them to go.
They
Or?
got nowhere to go. They've been put under, such emotional distress and, domestic stuff. And then the guy is taking it out, their financial issues, on her or the children or the pets, never themselves, over stuff, over things, because their pride has been hurt or whatever. She said something about if you were a better provider or something like that, hit one of these triggers. I mean, it can happen. So,
Right.
there's a lot of times lack of learning, lets a lot of blame get spread pretty thin
Right.
around. But however you get into the situation, our goal was to try to extract and get people safe
Okay.
into a safe place. And there was the one instance here that ended up being I had to testify, and my guys had to testify, give depositions for what we found in the situation there. We never even saw the man. Never did. He was a coward. But this is where the weakness shows itself and can manifest itself just in the home.
My God.
So when the men are weak and they feel attacked, whether it was or not, it was their own perceived thinking of it. So maybe their own internal crisis and devaluing themselves was worse than what she said.
Okay.
We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But-
it's a mess.
Yeah, and it's never a good thing. But a strong man and woman in that regard would have said, yes, we agreed to this. This is what we did. We'd have it all ready for you to come pick up. They would comply and help. They would be part of the helpful exchange on this as they asked to do.
So, it's their material belongings and stuff that somehow they.
Yeah, they'd financed a sofa or a big screen TV or something like this back in the day. They'd go into Best Buy. A lot of people are sick with credit anxiety. So there would be people that would go into, how the stores that have instant credit or whatever,
Yeah,
qualify,
sure, yeah,
want to buy, there were people that would get the thrill. Some people go to the casino. Some people go to the Best Buy. the big box store and see if they could buy more on credit. See if they'll give us credit.
And they're not capable.
And they wait around the store for 30 minutes while they get their decision, just wondering if they're going to go home with the TV or the washer and dryer. It's like a game show.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, hey, we'll see if they're going to be foolish enough to give it to us. And then they would see how far they could go and who would come after it when they filed bankruptcy. Because you could file bankruptcy every 7 years. So.
Jeez, what do we do? Oh. But so it's materialism.
It's materialism. It's all the quest, for more. Now they're out there wanting to get these expensive gaming computers that are $3,000-$4,000. And they're out there waiting, and they're still doing it now. You go to a big box store, you wait around like the business office, and people who file their credit app or whatever, they're kind of waiting around. You can kind of see these people. They're not really shopping. They're just waiting with.
Trying to get credit.
Right, seeing if they're going to walk home with their toys.
It's amazing.
And then when they can't pay for them, then they go into the bankruptcy court, and with the meetings and all like that, they say, well, we're going to reaffirm on this, which we want to keep paying on it, or we want to abandon, voluntarily surrender it. And then somebody like me or my company would have to go out and pick these items up.
Wow.
And most times there was no problem at all, but sometimes it got pretty emotional. We had to be ready to respond to whatever we came across.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a different.
Yeah. So weakness manifests itself, if you will, a lot of different ways.
Well, it erodes their confidence and erodes their interpersonal relationships, and then people stay together just because they are too afraid and not confident enough to move on.
Sure.
So
yeah.
they
Where am I going to go?
We call them toxic relationships.
Yeah.
What they say, well, what am I going to do? Where would I go?
Right. Oh,
well,
sure. Yeah. And practical too.
Well, in this woman's instance, the firehouse was the first place to go.
Right.
And by the end of the second night, she was all set up in her own apartment with everything from the community services that were available.
Yeah.
From even people like me that would help have roomfuls or storage units full of furniture and items and bedding and things like that we would hold on to that weren't quite good enough for the auction market, or people weren't going to buy it. Well, we'd say, well, that's still good. We'd put it away. Somebody in need is going to need that.
Wow.
And so when these people come through, they come through with their truck, say, well, we need sheets and everything for
Oh my
3
gosh,
kids,
you
and they would come through and gather it all
You were
up.
social service besides being
A little bit, yeah. It was like an immediate triage, for these emergency services. I mean, when you see it, you can't help but try to be a part of the.
It's got to be. I mean,
part of the cure.
Children, you remember children being involved?
Oh yeah, and that's why with kids and I don't know how we got into this, but anyway, the bedroom furniture and things like that. I got called into court one day. GE Capital called me in because I would not reclaim a set of bedroom furniture, but it was kids' bedroom furniture.
Okay.
Okay, and aside from the potential
Do the greater good.
Aside from the potential for pollution and the mattress and stuff like that, it was more about a story that I related to the judge back when I was 9 years old, and I told him, I said, Judge, I said, when I was in 3rd grade, I came home from school one day, and everything in my bedroom was gone. All my clothes were on the floor. All that was left was my bed, my pillow, my blanket. My bed was gone, mattress was gone, dresser, everything gone. All my stuff was just sitting on the floor in the corner. And I came home and walked into my room and everything was gone, and I wondered if I was next. And it was the fact that my mother and father were antique dealers, and everything in our home was for sale. And if somebody came through and said, hey, I need a child's bedroom set, she goes, well, I have 3 of them. Here, let's go. We'll go. Larry's is available. Here. And so I come home from school and everything's gone.
Oh, my God.
Lesson number 1, nothing in life is permanent.
Well, that's true.
And don't get attached to things.
Yeah.
Because your things could be gone in an instant.
Right.
And but eventually I got another bedroom set, but I had to help.
You weren't sure of that.
Well, I had to help paint it and clean it, so I had pride of ownership when it all got put back in. But so that's how that went. But I remembered what it did to me.
Yeah.
In that instant, and how I felt sort of.
Well, sure, it's a life.
I just felt basically like I was the space debris floating away with nothing to hold me.
Sure.
And I just felt like I had no place.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to do that to a kid who had no fault in this bankruptcy. I mean, and certainly not for $800 worth of.
So what did GE
economy.
say to you?
Well, the judge looked at me and he says, basically, he says, you're not kidding. I said, no, sir, I'm not. And I said, I will not. And these folks need to know if they need somebody else to pick up child's bedroom furniture and to
Get someone
hurt
else,
the
yeah.
kid. Yeah. I said, they can send it off to somebody else and I'll, be glad to refer the business.
would
I
it-
said, but I can't do that.
What did Your Honor say to you?
He said, thank you. And he dismissed me. And I never heard anything more about it. I just continued on as I did.
See, and the judge he was a real man. He was a man of character. If he'd have gone by the book, it would have gone a different way. But he saw the import of the rule and the spirit of the.
I'm providing a service to society to the first part.
Absolutely. No,
Okay, and so I'm not going to sit there and try to do any more damage than what's already been imparted on this
God bless
family.
you, Larry.
Well, because then the children become collateral damage in this whole thing, and then maybe the kid then shuts down and thinks, Dad really hates me, and then all of a sudden here's this totally destroyed relationship that they had any chance of trying to get back together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was heartbreaking, but it was such a learning experience.
Well, Sean, you said, at one point, well, how did he get into this? Well, you got into it because we're talking about character. We're talking about courage versus weakness. And anybody can approach either one. It's a decision we make. So you can have not a pot to pot in.
And a strong person can be weak from time to time, too. And a weak person can be strong.
That's right. That's right. So the man that was beating his wife, you don't have to do that. You can do something else. And you can be the father that you're supposed to be, like anybody else. Because there's a lot of poor people that you see that they have faith, but they don't have any goods or services. In the Philippines, they say, watch these kids are going down the pals, you know what I mean? And they haven't got a pot to pot. And they're so happy. I mean, these are people that are cooking, like inviting me over for dinner, and they're cooking on an outside.
Because they know they're going to eat dinner.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Larry.
They're going to eat tonight.
So where does this come from, this love these kids have? We have these material things. We're miserable.
Well, I've asked people a number of times and said, I think a lot of people have food insecurities. And people have always asked me over the years, if you could do one thing, what would that be?
Wow.
And I said, I'd make sure everybody has a meal every day, all around the world.
Yeah.
One good meal every day, at least one. Because, and I found out in the types of work I was doing, there was a bankruptcy work or other things, or even people coming to the door at the center at the Springs for years. I mean, I was telling you this morning about, I said, who on earth gets out of their bed at 10:30 at night to go down the hallway, this darkened hallway, to go answer a door where somebody's been banging on it for the last 10 minutes?
Oh, my God.
10:30 at night. I did.
Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, I was telling you. It was scary as heck because you didn't know who was going to be out there. But there'd be another one of these world travelers showing up and saying, I don't know why I'm here, but God told me to come here. And Larry would know what to do. It happened repeatedly. I mean, I had women from Germany. I had people from the Southeast Asia. I had people from Australia. I had people from Texas. I had people from Canada coming in. I had people from England coming in. And they were all coming and saying that God told them to go to Rome City, and Larry would know what to do.
Yeah. Well, you can't turn away from it. You had to do something.
Well, you just realize that your night is shot and you're not going to get any sleep now, so you might as well deal with these people and what they've been brought to you. But who would sit there and incessantly keep pounding on the door at 10:30 at night?
Nobody would.
They would think the place is closed.
Yeah.
But they were so urgently in need. They were out of their head.
Well, they were told to go there.
They'd gotten off of so many planes and all the way they're here, and they could see a light inside. And
you told me to.
Yeah, and they're showing
Where
up.
is this guy?
And it's like bam, bam, bam. It's like
Right.
I felt like I was the doorman at the Wizard of Oz.
That's amazing.
Well, bust my buttons. Come on in.
Yeah.
It was just,
Great movie.
it has so many metaphors in it.
Yeah.
But but weakness in men and in complacency leads to weakness in the family, and it leads to weakness in their businesses.
Yes, it does. Doesn't it?
And things of this nature, and a lack of concern or regard for each other follows. with that, because when you get a lack of concern or whatever for yourself, everyone else is immediately in
Sure,
the path.
it goes across the
Sure.
the whole family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once you cut the membrane on that, it's going to ooze out everywhere.
yeah, yeah. So we're being attacked. Language is changing. Nobody's identifying gender. Still on
Yeah.
a quest for, gaining as many material. I think a lot of the atheists say, the winners are the ones that have the most wealth at the end of their life. And I'm thinking, if it ain't taking the wealth at the end of their life.
Nobody takes anything with them.
What do you mean? What did
well,
they gain?
Well, there's only two things you take with you out of this life.
What is that?
We talked about those.
Yes, upstairs.
Okay, the truth is one.
Correct.
The truth is continuous. So the truth is one thing you take with you, and everything you ever gave away on this earth in the name of God. Because if you give it away in the name of God, okay, it goes into your permanent bank account.
Nice. Yeah, treasure.
But I mean, do you think about it? If you give something in the name of God for the glory of God, you own it forever
Well,
in God's bank account.
it's
And that's the one you want, because that's the one that has the best return on investment.
sure is. I mean, it's your children. I mean, make sure they're baptized. Make sure. They're
Oh my
baptized.
gosh! Don't start me on that.
Yeah, but we're talking about strong men and women. Is not.
There's
weak.
so many people in our world today have never been baptized.
How important is the?
It's a I mean, if you were to ask that on a census, I don't know if they'd allow you to, but I think you'd find out an incredibly scary number. I mean, I just did it with people working for me.
Yes.
My contractors and guys working around.
Yeah.
Out of 8, I think only 3 had been baptized. And
What
it's
is-
like, because their parents hadn't been baptized, there was no family. And I told them, I said, look, if you guys want to work here with the spiritual attacks that happen at this place,
You gotta have
I said, you're
protection, yeah.
crazy
Right.
not to be baptized. And I said, they says, well, we don't want to be Catholic. I said, I don't care.
Yeah,
You don't have to
really.
be Catholic. I said, go down the street.
Sure.
You go get baptized.
Sure, it was that
one
important,
of those
wasn't it? Yeah.
churches, if that's what you want to do. I said, the Catholic Church won't baptize you until you've been through, some training.
I hear you.
And all like
Yeah,
that.
right.
But no, you can go down to the
Yeah, go down
snake.
to the-
You go down to the snake charmer, and he'll
He'll do some water. Right.
he'll baptize you right now.
Yeah. So the importance of a protection from God.
Sure,
And
because
that
if you're not claimed, if you're not part of the draft into God's army, you become an automatic player in the devil's.
So
The devil owns you if you're
would they
not
be
baptized.
more vulnerable? Would they be more?
Of
vulnerable?
course they would. Of course.
And
They would.
have you seen this? In terms
Well,
of
I saw personal attacks on my guys working for me. I saw their lives kind of fall apart.
Ooh.
And one gentleman a few years ago, he was working and everything was falling apart. And I just looked at him and I said, dude, have you been baptized? He goes, nah, I don't need that shit. I said, no, you do.
So
I said, everything you have around you is falling apart. And I said, you're under attack.
what did he say to you?
He said, well, what do I do? I said, you go get baptized. He goes, well, I don't want to be Catholic. I said, I don't care if you're Catholic or not. You go get baptized.
You were as serious as a heart attack with this guy.
I said, this is all happening for a reason. I know what attacks look like. This guy was going through it again and again, and his wife had left him because he got belligerent. His whole attitude just went bad.
Wow.
And but we got him help.
It's not like you didn't have enough to do here.
No, all of a sudden I'm a caretaker for everybody.
Poor,
I mean,
I don't laugh as
But
this
no,
is
like
my
I said,
God.
so many times, I'm just trying to make it through the day without getting dead. You know,
he
no.
wasn't kidding.
No, it's, but this guy, he ended up, he did get baptized, and remarkably, like within a month, everything was back together with he and his wife and kids and all
Wait
like
a minute.
that.
Like that in a
It
month?
was like in a month's time.
Hey,
He
folks.
had this, but he had to show it to her, and I said, look, I said, ask your wife out for a date. He goes, I said, take her out for a meal, take her out.
Yeah.
You used to do it.
My good friends out there, words of wisdom.
Take your wife on a date.
First get baptized, then take her on a date, then you get lucky. But
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
well, you get lucky in life. I mean, life starts to go your way because
Yeah.
you start having, the protections that are there, and then you made a decisive move in that moment, especially as an adult,
Yeah.
saying, I'm choosing Christ
Well,
as my Savior on this. And then that's a huge piece of armor to
Oh
put
my-
on when
oh
the
my
devil's
God.
trying to come after you.
Unbelievable.
In the midst of the war, all of a sudden this
tell me what
person
he
who's being attacked all of a sudden transforms into
absolutely
Right.
no. Tell me what he said to you after things started looking up after.
He said you were right.
My
And he
God.
says, I don't know. He says, I don't know why. I said your parents just didn't know. I said, don't
Wow.
blame your parents. They didn't know about this because their parents didn't hold it in.
You know that movie Stu.
Yeah, we
I
were talking about
watched it.
that. Okay.
One of the things, he died when he was 50 years old. This is a guy that Larry knew that came through here, and we talked about on the last podcast. And I'm wondering, why is Larry talking about Stu? And I happen to have the movie. But
Stewie.
Stewie.
It was Stewie.
And at the end of the movie, he died at 50. He had I think he sort of had something like Lou Gehrig's disease. But he extremely interesting character. But the centerpiece of his ministry, and people love this guy, that his parents, he asked his father and his mother, would you please get baptized before you die? And they had some little clips on there, and sure enough, they got baptized. But exactly what you said, they didn't know. I mean, not that they were against it, just they weren't necessarily for it. But Stu and his suffering and the father and then the softening of their hearts, at least at that piece, it begins to make sense. Now, I've known Larry for years. I never heard this piece about the baptism, which is so uplifting and courageous. It makes courageous men and women, fathers and mothers. And it's beautiful stuff.
Well, I don't know how I got to be their spiritual directors in this thing because, like I said, I'm not a churchy person.
I know, but still,
But a lot of people want to sit there and I still get, well, you're not doing it right.
Well, you're more of a you're a street fighter is what you are. I mean, you know what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and you know the value of certain things in sacraments. So, but you're not, going around saying, if you don't get baptized, you're going to hell. You know what I mean? And you're not going to be permitted. And it's a different,
right. It's like you said, I know what it means to be a Catholic, and there's battles that I have
correct
with that still in my personal life and from people outside looking in that are judgmental on it, but they have no idea. They're just looking at an outside superficial headline, and then all of a sudden they would make a damning statement about me. I said, well, come and talk to me a little bit.
Yeah.
And try to understand.
And then you can condemn me, right?
Because, you're sitting there condemning me. I've got people rushing up to me at public gatherings and blurting out things like Rosa Mystica. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I knew what Rosa Mystica is. I don't, follow it, but these folks apparently did.
Right.
But it was something was happening in them that they needed to let me know that they were believers and devotees of Rosa Mystica, not knowing that I had anything to do with Our Lady of America,
Absolutely,
or the mystical city of God.
Correct. Yeah, there's a reason for it, and
it's just crazy ways that the Holy Spirit knits this garment together.
Right.
And if you don't get the jokes, folks,
You're
missing the story.
Right.
Because it really is a delightful, comedy that heaven has. It's not, we make it a drama. They're sitting back.
Our Lord makes it a comedy, right?
Yeah,
Let's have a few laughs.
they're back there taking back bets. Well, how many times is it going to take before he finally gets it this time? Well, I think he's going to get it the third time, So they got a chart going up there. And Gabriel's up there with Michael, says, I told you, I'm good.
Right.
You owe me from the last time. You owe me two. So, But they're looking at it with a happy and not a cynical view. They're patient with us as humans and
To come around.
and children. Just like you were talking about your grandchildren, and we're talking about how when the baby offers you a cookie, and how that's just a wonderful sign of love.
Oh yeah,
And
Grandpa, this is real.
and sharing, and this is where you find out where the true essence of God is in the people and the children.
Right.
So God wants you to be, and Jesus wants you to be childlike in that. Say,
Absolutely, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
that-
So it's your turn. He said, a little grandson. Pop, your turn. He says, "Well, we do the ice cream thing." It's like a fake ice cream thing. So I put my hand around it. He goes, "Oh, you can't do that. How come?" He goes, "What's going to melt on your hand?" He goes, but they love to play it out, and so I gave him a choice. I told this before, between viddies. In other words, you can get, kids can watch the viddies, or we can play this next thing we're going to play. What do you want to do, Frank? He goes, "I want to play." He goes, they really want to play as opposed to look at them.
No, we said they're after your time and they're after your involvement, your investment back in. Gee, kids are kind of like, they want your investment into your spiritual life, to where it's not so much of an investment in work challenge as it is of just a happiness that you go about things. And when things you might consider to be pitfalls, and a lot of people have these, oh crap moments.
Right.
You say, no, it's
Really
just,
not,
we
yeah.
can take care of that.
Right.
That's no big deal. I've seen that
Right.
before.
Right.
Little, that's nothing. Let's not make mountains out of molehills. Let's get through the day. Let's have a wonderful, quiet time at night where everyone comes back in.
Sure,
and,
that's precious. Yeah.
Everyone gets to tell something about what in the day that made them happy. And it's just little things. I mean, my dad, at dinner time, 6:00 every night, you better be around that table. And I learned early on that you better have something that you learned in school to report to your dad that night.
right?
Because my dad would go around the table. He said, "Well, tell me what you learned in school today." And one day I said, "Oh, nothing." He goes, "Well, that won't do." He says, "Well, you're not ready for dinner then. You haven't learned anything." He says, "Go upstairs. There's a set of encyclopedias." He says, "I want a one-page report on," he'd come up with a topic.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Frank?
one time he said, "Metallurgy. I want a one-page report on metallurgy."
Frank the Tank.
I didn't even know what metallurgy was. I didn't know how to spell it.
Yeah, really.
I'm like in third grade. Well, I went up and I pulled out the set of encyclopedias,
Yeah.
and I like the old school. I couldn't Google it. And if you were going to plagiarize, you had to write everything out by hand,
So it wasn't work
which I
there.
did.
Right.
But your dad wants you to write a report on metallurgy before you have dinner. And I ended up getting dinner. It was about 9:00 at night.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, but I did a report on metallurgy, and I actually double dipped it because I used it then later on for an assignment for science class. So
Smart.
I figured, well, if I'm going to do it for Dad to eat, I may as well,
That
leave
was
it for a
smart. Good
science
move.
for a science class or something like that.
Very good move.
So I just put it up on the wall there and kept it until I needed it.
Wow, that's something. So I bet you never said that. I didn't learn nothing today.
I learned very much, so I always made sure I had something to talk about. And sometimes I'd turn it on him. Yeah, we learned about this today. What does that mean? And I turn it on him.
And what would he do?
He get really quiet. He said, "Well, we'll talk about it after dinner."
I'd love Frank, yeah.
Then he'd run from me, and I'd have to be doing dishes and stuff like that. I could hear him sneaking upstairs to the encyclopedia set.
Looking at what,
He go looking up what it was I asked him about.
Yeah.
So he'd come to me with all the smarts. My dad was funny, but
unbelievable.
yeah, he had confidence issues. He was a little guy, but
Oh, his father was classic. I loved his father. Classic Frank. You'd say, this guy, he knows where he's going, when he's going to get there, and I just admire the way he looked was so cool. I mean, he had a temperament that you just fall in love with. There was nobody created
you better
like
not
Frank
say
the
anything.
Tank.
You better not have said anything bad about me when you were up there, because he would have fought you.
Yeah, no,
he was very protective in that regard.
Was he?
Because there were a lot of people saying improper things, and he was combative about that. I tried to tell him, I said, "Look, Dad, you just got to let them go. They don't know what they're talking about."
Right.
I said, "They're not important."
Yeah.
But he was, upset about that.
I'm sure his father wants to protect his son, and he knows the truth. And you got these people that are whacked out that for no reason. I mean, first of all, you don't do that. We're taught not to do that. And
it wasn't
rude.
it wasn't everybody.
No, I know,
There'd be
but
the occasional
there's
visitor
some
would come
rudeness and
through.
insensitive.
Right.
We don't need that here. But I'll tell you, at the restaurant, Larry, I'd have a great time at the restaurant. Deal with a lot of people, and singing, and the one guy.
One person can ruin the whole
Yes,
night.
sir. Hey, mate. Okay, guy's from Australia. Hey, mate. I said, "What are we going to do for you?" "I don't like the meatballs." I said, "Sir, I'm 65 years old. I'm Italian. If I don't know how to make a meatball at this stage in my life, I should got to get out of the business." I said, "Tell you what, don't have to pay for anything. You got 2 minutes to get out." I don't want to deal with it, right? Because one person, if I decided like to flip out about the meatball, your head is this big. You argue with the guy, and the whole night was a nice night. Turns out to be a tragedy for me, because I can't hold my tongue. You know, I'm Italian.
Oh yeah, well,
but I mean, there's one person they're going to upset you. Best just to let it roll off your shoulders and just move on. And you know who you are, and you know what they're saying is crazy, and you have to almost deflect it. But it does affect you, because there are people that they just simply don't care, and you have to learn how to deal with that too. Life isn't just you're out there. You people know, you experience life. Let's all be real men and real women, and let's bring something to the table where we emphasize virtue, not vice, clarity, and noticing and knowing the difference, and the understanding that language just can't be changed. If somebody doesn't know who a man or a woman is, it's their problem. It's not your problem. And
don't make it your kid's problem.
Don't make it your kid's problem. You pass on, would you say, the truth you take with you, and whatever.
Well, there's only two things you take with you out of this world. That's the truth and everything you ever gave away in God's name.
There you go. So that's a good rule. So we should stick with that. But I mean, we do these interviews. I mean, we're not even sure sometimes.
Well, they're wormholes, but that's how the basic question that was asked leads, especially in this time and place that we're in right now. The world is very confused, at least people in it. Many are. Thank heavens there's enough folks that are solid in their own institutions.
There is more grounding, isn't there?
But they're quiet.
Okay.
And they're feeling pacified, and they're feeling shut down, and they're feeling uncomfortable standing up. And I'm saying you have to stand up. You have to. It's your job. We were talking about Fulton Sheen and what he had said about whose responsibility is it to look after the church.
And he said
it's yours. He says it's not the priests, it's not the bishops, it's not the cardinals, because they will not police themselves. He says you have to. And this was his admonition to all of the Catholic Church back in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. He says, you must.
Oh, you're right. This is back in the day when you thought everything was fine.
Well, we were talking the other day about Our Lady's cries about what was going on in the mid-50s.
In the 50s.
And I said, well, who would want to have lived there? I mean, who would want to live through that if it was so bad?
Right.
But what she was talking about is really almost 10 times worse today.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she was complaining about it in the 50s.
Right. Yeah.
My mother was saying that was the greatest decade of her life.
And I agreed with your mother too.
And I asked her again. She says, "Yeah,
no, it was great. I mean, it was but Our Lady's warning us. Hey,
she was seeing the pitfalls of the earthly material pointing that was going on, and a lot by her priests and bishops. She was concerned.
So we have to be strong. We have to be forthright. We have to pursue the truth, and you have to pitch in by opening your mouth. You cannot be complacent. You have to declare yourself. Larry brought off a beautiful point. If you've not been baptized, please go and get baptized. Go to anybody or anyone that'll perform it.
It's not just a sign.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's a living sacrament.
It is your vote against the devil.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have one vote in this, my proxy was given to my parents when I was a baby.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So they voted for me.
Right.
I'm happy in their choice.
Absolutely.
Okay. But if you haven't been baptized, okay, go vote. Are you going to want to stay with the light and that being in Jesus, or do you want to go for the dark, that being with the devil's temptations?
It's the most important instruction.
It's your choice. It's not mine.
Most important instruction I got today from your declarations of the baptism of the sacrament. So
You need to. I mean, it's the first one, and if you're an older adult or whatever, and you've never been baptized, this is an opportunity. And what they say, if you can get baptized, have first communion, and die 15 minutes later, it's
I know a guy in Oneida, New York. My grandmother I remember the chimes in the 50s. Remember those chimes, the glass chimes, and you'd hear that little tinkle, tink. You know,
well, it depends. I mean,
well, I remember. But anyway, the guy next door used to say his rosary. I locked him in his garage one time, and
you're talking about the chimes outside on people's
Outside, yeah,
houses
yeah.
that I'd go and rip down at night so I didn't have to listen to
yeah,
them?
you're right. It's okay.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I never seen them.
But I mean, an answer or a thought about a response to what you're saying, 15 minutes later, you move on to heaven after you get these things done. This guy, he goes to bed at night, he says his rosary, doesn't wake up the next day. And I'm thinking, sounds good to me. I'll sign up for that. You know what I mean? If I can go to bed and wake up in heaven.
Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
Who's to
well,
know?
I hope he did.
Well, but they say if you could be baptized,
Yeah, and then go to bed, right?
right, or receive Christ, and then die, you've had no room to sin, because if you're absolved from all the other stuff.
Absolutely, because you've been washed with the water.
Yeah, it's God's scorecard. I don't keep track of the hits and the errors.
And this is based on I never heard the story before, where his people that would work with me said, listen, we're in a battle here, and I got to tell you, protection. And a magnificent miracle story where the guy actually does it. And then the restoration of his family and his marriage. I mean, where do you hear these things?
Here.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of concerning to me. We were looking through some of the old things in the blog site and things like that, and there used to be so many letters of people telling about their transformations, or their healings and things like that. These miraculous changes in their life.
Yeah, there were beautiful books came out of that. Though.
Where are they now?
They're upstairs. Oh,
No. Where are the ones today? I mean, we're not getting them.
Well, we don't have the blog.
I don't. Well, I don't. Well, the blog. I used to also get letters in the mail and stuff.
No more. Yeah.
I haven't seen them. No.
Well, we'll pray to the good Lord.
I'm hoping that they're still coming. I just aren't not seeing them.
Okay.
I'd like to
See
know. Yeah, I'd like to know if people are responding. I know some are, but maybe just the art of the written letter and stuff like that is not being done anymore. People won't take the time to write a letter. They always say, sometime I'll let them know.
We're hoping that the blog gets the word out, and that our folks out there begin to see God's love in their life and their changes, and that go ahead and send in those letters or those comments, and Larry will be setting up some things that can be done. Even write a letter and send it.
Well, just anything. Testaments matter, and because the bishops are always looking for the fruits.
Yeah.
They want to see the poll results.
And you'll encourage other people that God is living in that respect. Then we begin to build, a family of people that are willing to be courageous. And
first thing is making yourself a little bit vulnerable. You have to sit there and write the letter, and when you do that, a lot of times it makes you vulnerable.
it's all right.
Well, but not for a lot of people. They're afraid, because they're afraid if they step out, say something, and somebody criticizes them, then they're going to be canceled. They're afraid. It's hard, and it can be shut down a lot of times when you want to bring that 3-letter word into the discussion. You start mentioning God. I mean, look what they did to Einstein. He tried mentioning at the end of his life that God was real.
Yeah, tell that story again.
Which one you want? I mean, there was
they had the calculations of
for
probability.
most all of Einstein's adult life with him and his buddies, the math guys, when they would get together, a lot of times they'd play, lawn polo and stuff like this, and bocce ball, I guess that's what it is. And they would, when they get done with that, they go inside, they play with math. And one of their hobbies and pursuits as they would get together was they wanted to try to come up with a formula, an equation to describe the coincidence of math, or not of the math that would describe coincidence in the universe. And they kept trying. And finally, late in life, it was one of Einstein's last interviews, or toward the end of his life, And the interviewer asked, Professor, whatever happened with the equation to describe, coincidence in the universe? And Einstein said, he says, glad you asked that. He said, after years and years of meticulous work on the subject, we finally had to come to the ultimate conclusion that a coincidence is just God's way of remaining anonymous.
Well, he took a chance on that, didn't he?
Well, he said we can't describe it because there's too many variables. And the only way to describe it is through the presence and the active involvement of God
Of
and
intelligence.
an intelligent design. That thoroughly ticked off the...
Did they attack him?
Yeah. Oh, he's old. He's losing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he was courageous.
The temperament of an old man who's afraid.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you say?
Let's
Atheists and
sign up
foxholes?
at the end of the night. Yeah, the end of the day. Well, there you go, folks. It's everybody. Everybody's in the same position that we can either man up, woman up, look at things, and declare ourselves.
Yeah, get
For
strong.
that
Get strong.
Three-letter
Get strong.
word. It's the best thing that ever happened in my life. Is the good Lord.
Well, why is Hollywood, the God people in Hollywood are running away? I mean, they're all like saying they're going to, we're getting away from, the Hollywood mentality because they know it's destructive.
So who's running away? You mean actors and
the
actresses?
actors and actresses, they're moving to rural areas. A lot of it's by design with tax code to go get themselves a piece of land, call it a farm. And
But
have
you
a
think
couple
there's also
animals out there.
some moral underpinning? Or
I think that they're seeing the nuttiness and they don't want to fall into it. They realize it's unhealthy, and they just think, well, we just have to work here a few months out of the year, and then the rest of the time we can go retreat back at our own place.
enough to work, get their money, and then get out of Dodge.
But they're being cowards
Yeah.
in their process.
Well, I mean, Hollywood does have an overlay, a huge overlay of satanic symbols, ideas. You've seen this. I mean, in parades, halftime.
The imagery, and that's why I say you got to get rid of the old imagery, or the bad images, and replace them with good ones.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everything around your house needs to be, run as a shrine or anything like that, but at least have some positive influences around.
Perhaps one of these in your home.
One of these for sure. I mean, one of these should be by the front door. Christ is the head of this house.
All right.
So I sent some out the other day to a friend of mine down in Indianapolis. I dropped him the mail on Saturday. He told me Monday he got them. So
How nice.
we didn't think he'd get there for another week, but he got them like really, really quick. And so I'm excited about that. He can put those in frames. I think he's got 3 or 4 kids. They'll each get one, and he'll have one for a friend. So,
Excellent. Yeah, I see I gave 2 to my daughters, and then my son's going to get his as soon as they fly down to see him in Florida. So the beautiful gifts for their home, and they're all of my kids very faithful. Thank God that I'm very proud of them, and the mother instilled in them their upbringing, their Catholic upbringing, and their faith. So we got coming down the road. Larry's already put together an introduction of what he plans on doing and writing his books, so keep watching out for that. And we'll bring forward as he gets up and he's writing this stuff. It's beautiful. He's inspired by the Holy Spirit. He has talent and he has a capacity to do this kind of work, but the Holy Spirit has a hold of him, and I think that we're looking forward to some books.
Well, we're talking with a couple of agents on things. I want to make sure this is done right and not just haphazard. I mean, I don't want to sit there and don't want to slum this in.
No, it's got to get out there. We can't be just
I
like the
right.
book. It's sitting here, 20 years from now we're gonna.
No, so we're working on that. I think the platform for the hosting platform has been chosen, and I'll be trying to get that up and going and try to start putting. But I had to look through all the different platforms and which one was going to be good, and I didn't have to worry about getting censored content.
Good.
Things of that nature.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think we're in Rumble class to where we have to be that sheltered, but
Right.
depends what happens in the world. If they want to start coming after Christian type, thinking, or irresponsible thinking, as I like to call it, we'll find out.
Joseph Torellia had something to say about that, and we're going to be doing a feature, a piece on Torellia. He interfaces with our Angel of America. He's interfaced with Our Lady of America. He's written several books. I've been spending time extracting what Torellia has written and his involvement. And he does have something to say about the role of America and vis-a-vis the Angel of America. And so stay tuned as we continue to, figure out, what we're going to be presenting. And we'll continue with things on the Mystical City and many, many things that the good Lord will bring before us. But the books are going to be very refreshing because he's going to tell us. In many things I didn't know. We knew each other. There'd be times Larry's down in Florida and I'm doing whatever I'm doing, but he's going to tell us what it was like to take on this project.
Mm-hmm. Did I ever tell you about the little kid with autism that came in?
No.
One time. Oh my gosh, this was in the early 2000s.
3, 4, 3?
They're about. Yeah, I'd
5.
Well, I can't recall exactly
early,
when. It was the mid 2000s. Yeah, it was early on, and I'd just gotten one of these double pull ice cream machines. The soft serve dispenser of chocolate and vanilla. And it was like the new thing we had in the situation there. And there was a guy showed up I believe on a Saturday. He showed up and he had this little boy with him. And they'd flown in from Dallas, Texas. And this guy, they flew in from Dallas to Indianapolis, and they rented a car and then drove from Indianapolis to Rome City.
Wow.
This guy lived in Dallas, and he had a son with him, and the little boy had autism. And I didn't know much about autism. I just thought it was just, little kids, going to be a little...
He's a little distracted.
No, he's going to be a little slow in his, development. I didn't really have knowledge about the spectrum on this stuff, where this kid was at. Well, the father shows up, and he says, "You're going to think this is really crazy." I said, "Try me." And he goes, "I've been having a dream about this place and that I was supposed to bring my son here."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, here you are." I said, "Do you want to tell me about the dream?" He says, "Well, it's kind of hard." I said, "Well, it's easy if you just tell me the truth that, that
that's all. God
told you to come here and that I would know what to do." And he says, "How did you know?" I said, "You're not the first."
Does it all the time, yeah.
You're not the first. I said, so, and the little boy was just, kind of being a little unruly. And I just thought, I said, "Hey, we just got a really cool ice cream machine." I said, "If you're good, and your dad and I can get through this little meeting here, maybe we'll go get some ice cream. Does that sound good?" And he didn't say anything. And I said, "But we'll go get some ice cream." But the kid was still, he's off going around. Yeah. He's back in his,
sure. Yeah.
Eyes are gone. And just a cute little kid though. And the dad was just so sincere. And the dad's just like, oh,
it's a severe form of autism.
And the father's wondering what is this all about?
No kidding.
Because he's just trying to get the kid some help. He doesn't know what this is about. And I'm trying to explain to him the nature of the property, what it had been. And so he says, just out of the blue, he says, "Will you pray for me?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "No, will you pray for me now?" And I said, "Sure." So what kind of church do you go to? He says, "I don't go to church."
Wow.
He says, "My family, we don't go to church."
Oh, my God.
And I said, "Well, okay." And so I said, "Well, let's do this." So I sat him down, and I went and I got, I had a relic of the True Cross with me. Somebody had, and so
Michelle Davis gave it to you.
Yeah, it was. And then I also had my little container here of
Tears of the Blessed
This has
Mother.
the Tears of the Blessed Mother in it.
Can I see that?
Still.
Oh, nice. I got to have some of that.
Well,
I think mine have been.
Well, this has been like this for quite some time. But you can.
Yeah, would you invite me? Thank you. Thank you.
Never go to waste.
So,
Sorry,
he
I
says,
went
"Would you pray for me?"
I went and I grabbed my tools.
Okay.
Okay. And so I'm back there, and the little boy there, we're sitting in the little chapel. And I came in and I prayed over this guy. And I just started saying, Lord, I said, I'm praying to myself, Lord, I said, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but you sure as heck do.
That's right.
And I said, so
That's how it works.
I said, it's my hands, just use me as a vessel.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't know, but I'm setting things up for success here. So here I am in position, and I kid you not, it was amazing. But fell down on that man. I felt so much heat.
Did you feel the heat?
I felt so much heat come off of this man.
Oh my God.
It was incredible. And I get done praying over. He just falls into like a bucket of tears, and he's just so sorrowful. I said, what is this? He says, I could see when you were touching me how I failed as a father. I said, no, you have not failed as a father. I said, you answered the call. You brought your kid here.
Right. That's right. Courageous father.
Right. He says, but I've got more children. And I said, well, here's one. And with that, the little boy tugs at his dad's shirt and says, Daddy, can we go get ice cream now?
You gotta be kidding me.
The father just totally loses it.
He was cured.
The father just totally loses it. I don't know how the kid was
He
before.
was cured.
I don't know.
I know.
Okay, well, anyway, the kid's asking for ice cream, and the father's freaking out. I said, what's the big deal? The kid wants ice cream. He says, my son has never spoken to me in
before,
my
yeah.
entire life.
Yeah. I've dealt with autism.
So I learned about autism in that day.
It's a miracle.
But the father's just like beside himself.
What
So I went and I got the kid ice cream and let the dad alone for a while.
What did he mean? I have more children.
He had more kids.
To in what respect did it?
Well, he was ashamed that he hadn't been holding more regard for their spiritual life, these kids, that he thought that this is some sort of a pain or some sort of penalty, for his other kids, what was happening to this one kid with the autism. I said, no. I said, Jesus isn't vengeful that way.
Right.
I said, but you have the opportunity to, bring your whole family
What did he say?
to life. Well, he said, this is I intend to. So we got ice cream.
Yeah.
And we looked at the schedule, and fortunately there was enough time that they could get back to Indianapolis and get on a return flight that evening.
That's amazing.
Okay. And so we did, and he wasn't Catholic or anything like that, but I gave him all the information. I gave him the 25-cent tour.
Oh, sure.
And the little boy just seemed
Normal. Sort of normal.
better.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, so the father went home. A few weeks later, he calls back, and I said, so how did it go? He says, you need more ice cream? He goes, no. He says, I need something else. He says, I need rooms. I said, what do you mean? I said, I need 15 rooms. I said, 15 rooms? And he goes, yeah. He says, I want to bring my whole family to Rome City.
Wow.
So I said, okay. So the next weekend, he put his whole family on Southwest Airline flights. The guy had 8 kids.
What do you do for a living?
He was a doctor.
God love him.
So, and he left me $1,000 for each of the kids.
See? Well,
I mean, that was a very, very nice donation to have at that time. But that's what he felt, and I didn't try to prompt him. I didn't know what he was. I never asked anybody
no, right.
about their role in life. I see if everyone is a potential candidate. I may not like him, but Jesus does.
Right.
And that's okay, because like I said before, you don't have to like everybody, but you got to try to love them. It's a difference.
Well, the beauty of it is that Our Lady promised that predominantly they will be miracles of the soul, which is the conversion and the love of God. And through this little boy, through a simple asking Larry, can we get some ice cream now?
Well, I didn't see that was his healing moment, but the kid had been...
Yeah, because the father understood the complexity of autism, and they don't do that. You never heard him speak, but as a physician, he knows what happens in autism. Mm-hmm. So he also knows that God's with him. Mm-hmm. So whatever happened to that child autistic, it's what happened to his family as he became a courageous father that brought his family to Rome City and would partake of those gifts that Our Lady promised that her son would give. So it's a beautiful story.
Well, I don't know if they ever joined the Catholic Church, but I think they ended up going to a church, and so they ended up getting some element of Jesus in their life, and that's
good,
what he
yeah,
said.
sure.
You know, so if you want to be Catholic, that's wonderful. If you just want to learn about it, all I want you to do is get near the fire and understand where the fire's at in this. Don't be afraid of it. It's the heat is there, but it's for a reason.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid of it. Climb into it. Let it be all around you. Let you be a part of it, and you'll find, I think, a great sense of joy and satisfaction in that.
Yeah, what a beautiful story. There'll be many more stories, and then there's going to be new stories because there's going to be multiple people going to be converging and asking for Our Lady's intervention, and she's going to bring us safely to her son. And in between, we're going to be seeing our Lord's graces coming upon us and our families. Don't forget baptism.
And then after that, just if in the Catholic faith, stay close to your sacraments. Use them. They're there for a reason. It's not, an annual checkup kind of thing. This
Go to church on Christmas.
Yeah. And if you can, go more than once a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
Absolutely.
if you can go every day, that's awesome. If you can't, well, that's understandable. But, try to go, make an effort, more than once a week. And I think you'll find that to start paying dividends.
Excellent.
And if you're not Catholic, that's fine. I'm sure there's a church around you or a community you're a part of, and try to make that a little extra special. And maybe you get there a little bit early, or you linger a little longer.
Yeah.
In your fellowship that goes with that. There's all great ways that you can enlarge your circle and strengthen your your faith and your faith walk.
Very encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't take much. It just takes your investment, to care about it and be a part of it. I think you'll find really good dividends come out of that.
Well, thank you for all your work that you've done on behalf of Our Lady in the Call.
Well, we're going to keep going. We got a lot to do. A lot to do. So we got to get these segments up there so people can binge watch. They can get their whole outlines put together. You're doing a great job with the Mystical City of God. I can't wait to see the breakdowns chapter by chapter.
Thank you.
To help people have an at-home sort of study guide if they want to go about this. But like we talked about with this whole, these thousands of pages or whatever they're up in here, don't take it as one big work. Take it as a lifetime of learning and living in response to this. And like Alex said, and Father Solana says, don't read it, pray it.
Right.
So sometimes you could probably just read one paragraph and dwell on that.
You'll be going into... Right.
Well, you said there'd be one sentence you'd have to dwell on for weeks.
Right. So what a wonderful opportunity to work for our Lord and Our Lady on this behalf, and to pray for us that we drive our ship steady, and that we do what the good Lord wants us to do. Pray for us, our families, and our children, our grandchildren. So we promise to pray for yours as well.
All right, let's clip this and we'll start another one.
Thank you.